Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is a trainer education, and we're going to discuss the importance of body language. So we're going to cover kind of like nonverbal cues, and then I'm thinking I'm going to follow up this podcast with one about verbal cueing. So how what you say, like how you say it, matters. So what we're going to talk about today, though, is the importance of body language. So not even what you're saying, but what you're saying with how you're standing, how you're moving, with your gestures. So this stuff is extremely important to pay attention to, like very, very, very. So when I work with my interns, or when I work with helping career-wise with younger trainers, is one of the main things we talk about is body language. And I usually there's a couple good TED Talks that I know of that show the importance of body language and how simply just changing the way you're standing or your hand gestures, going from like a pointing motion to an open-handed, underhanded position. So if you're talking to somebody and you're saying something like, hey, I need you to, pull your chest in a little bit more. You need to pay attention to this so that way we can get better results. Like whether you're saying you or we makes a big difference. We're going to talk about the next podcast. But if you said all of that while pointing at the person, it's going to feel like a correction. However, if you have your hand open-handed and underhanded when you talk, so if you're somebody who talks with your hands, which I am, if you keep your hands open-handed and underhanded, it seems more of a collaborative, compassionate style of talking rather than an overhanded pointing finger. Nobody likes to be pointed at, but people do it all the time in personal training and don't pay attention to it. That feels very corrective, like you're yelling at somebody. So even without raising your voice, you can have an aggressive body language, which can get in the way of kind of what message you want to share with your client. So the more importance that you place and the more you pay attention to your body language, it helps improve your trainer-client relationship. So this will help improve kind of retention with clients. So if they come in, they feel like they're getting yelled at all the time, that's not going to get them motivated to come back. And then also it helps with when you need to give them corrections. Sometimes clients can shut down, and if you give a kind of a yelling at type of behavior in your body language, that'll make them shut down even faster. They'll get kind of on guard and get like aggressive. They'll get combative. They'll get argumentative. So we want to instead have them have the feeling that we're working together as teammates towards this end goal. So the better you can do with your body language of showing compassion, showing like being engaged and being non-aggressive, that'll help be able to give corrections, get them to make improvements, but feel like you're doing it in a positive, moving forward towards our goal way, rather than a corrective, combative, like kind of yelling at type of way of doing it. So it's very important. So I want to go through this podcast and kind of just raise some awareness to some things, and then have you guys be prompted now to kind of pay better attention and then look further into it if you think that this is also important. So I've told you guys in the podcast before, I used to teach at the local university for 7 years, and part of that was developing trainers. So they were in my classes that I taught, and we would do teaching examples. So some of the students might have to like teach an exercise to the class. And this is something that we would often talk about, is if they got up in front of the group and did some of the things we're about to say that are negatives, it really, really, you could see it in the way the other students responded. Like it was a very aggressive tone. It was kind of a negative tone. So it was kind of fun to get to raise the awareness to the students of that if they took that same message but just changed their body language, it really changed the tone of the conversation, and it made people more receptive rather than kind of shutting each other out. So one of the things we want to look at first off is being non-aggressive. So it's really important that when you're talking with clients that you have body language that shows a supportive, compassionate style position, not an aggressive position. So for example, I'm 6 foot tall, 280 pounds, and that can be very aggressive just in like body size. And anybody in the personal training world is going to let you know, and you'll all be aware that most of your clients are going to be females compared to males. Now, obviously, if you get into like sport specifics, so if you're a strength and conditioning coach for a football team, okay, you're going to work with guys mostly. But if you're working with females, it's important, if you are of a larger size, that you don't have like a size intimidation in the way that you stand or in your body language. So otherwise, they're going to feel kind of like, again, yelled at. It's going to feel like everything you're saying is very aggressive. So one of the things I pay attention to is never squaring up my shoulders to a female client. And this would be the same of like a male client who's not a dominant personality. So if it's kind of like a type B personality, or if they feel uncomfortable in the gym, or they kind of like, they just kind of feel like they don't belong, it's important to never square up your shoulders to them, because it's going to feel like an aggressive position. It's going to feel combative. So that's what we would do in fights. So if you were going to fight somebody, you would square up to them and say like, okay, here I am, like bring it. So you do not want to send a bring it message to your clients. So you want to have a message of love and compassion. So don't square up your shoulders. I think that helps a lot. Now, if you are a female, okay, and you're maybe a smaller framed female, it might be necessary to actually square up your shoulders to show a sign of like authority. And it's not like authority as in you're being a jackass and trying to be like in control of everything, but showing like, yes, I am capable of this position. I'm capable of my job. I'm capable of training you. So you have to read your client and see, what does the client need? So, for example, I've had guys come into the gym who were pretty large dudes, or they assumed they were large, and they wanted somebody like to show them like, man, I want to get a big chest. I want to get huge. I need to get like real strong. And when somebody has like an aggressive type personality like that, if I were to never square up my shoulders with them, they wouldn't give up control of the training session to me. So if somebody comes in aggressive, I will go ahead and square up my shoulders to them. And it allows me to kind of equal off the playing field, and they're more likely to relinquish control to me and let me be the trainer rather than them telling me everything the whole damn time. So you really have to read your client. If your client is aggressive, you may have to have more aggressive body language. Okay, if your client is non-aggressive, then you have to make sure you have non-aggressive body language. So you need to match what's needed in the moment. Okay, so that's something to pay attention to, is the squaring up of your shoulders. So you can do this with a friend, or like a spouse or whatever, is just play around with this in conversation, is stand where you're slightly pointing to the left or the right with your chest angle. Okay, so if there's a laser pointer coming straight out of your chest, non-squaring up, okay, not squaring up your shoulders, would be as having that laser pointer be slightly off to the right or left. So you're never really shoulder to shoulder, like face on towards them. You're going to be slightly angled to the left or slightly angled to the right. So you can give that a feel and see what that feels like when you're talking to them. And then you can say the exact same words, the exact same tone, but go ahead and square your shoulders up directly at the person. And it does feel more like alert. It feels more aggressive, even if you don't change the tone of what you're saying. Okay? Then also arm position, like whether you're folding your arms or you have your arms kind of like hand in hand in front of you or hand in hand behind you. So like kind of like a military position, if you were to say that. So if you fold your arms or you have a military position, you will either look like you don't care, you'll look like you're judging them, or you'll look like you think you have like a stick up your ass and you think you're more important than the moment you're in. So body language means a lot. So if you and I were talking and I just kind of folded my arms in front of you, you would think that I was shutting you off. That's pretty much what that body language says, is I'm closing myself down. I am stopping things coming in. So you're closing yourself off. It's like the signal of, I know I'm right, you're wrong, or like, screw you, I don't care about this. It gives that type of feel. I used to have a trainer way back when, who was in the military, and they stood with their hands behind their back. And it looked as if they just didn't care about their client, or it looked like they were being super authoritative, and it did not go well with their clients or with either people, even regular members of the gym watching them train people. They assumed the person was strict and stern, and this person was kind of newer to personal training. So they actually did do that on purpose to try to make themselves, like, I am in charge here. And it's like, yeah, we already know that. Like, you're the trainer. Nobody, you don't have to keep proving that in your body language. So that's why the person's paying you money. So don't try to like be all high and mighty and, worry about whether you're in charge right from the get-go. So match your client. If your client is not giving you respect, then yes, start taking body positions that show authoritativeness and being more aggressive. And that way you can get their attention and make sure that you're in charge. But don't default with an aggressive position. Okay? Your default position be something of compassion and then get aggressive or authoritative if needed. So don't have your arms crossed and don't take a military position. So I have a rule that I never will let my hands kind of clasp, meaning that I kind of keep my hands at my side, or I talk with my hands, or that's it. I've just trained myself. I never put my hands in my pockets because that looks like you don't give a shit. I never cross my arms. I never put my hands kind of clasped in front of myself or behind myself. I always leave my arms just kind of hanging at the side. One of the tricks I've found is I will count reps with my fingers. So if a client is doing a set of 10, as I'm talking to them, I will go ahead and kind of like make a finger, like count with my fingers as I would be kind of training the client. So, or as I'm talking. So as they would do a rep, I'd stick my thumb out, on my right hand. As they do their second rep, I have my thumb and my pointer finger out. Well, if you give your hands something to do like that, where you count every single rep as they're going, that will give you something to do with your hands. So then, like I said, learning to talk with your hands or do movements with your hands, keeping your hands and arms busy is a big benefit. So that way you don't default into those bad positions. And then we already mentioned it's not ever really appropriate to point at clients. So if you point at someone, no matter what you're saying to them, it has an aggressive tone. It has like a I'm yelling at you tone. So you never want to do pointing. You want to have underhand position and palms open, like fingers open. So when you talk to somebody with that hand gesture, so your hands are open and underhanded, no matter what you say, it comes across as being compassionate, as caring, because you're inviting, you're opening them, like you're opening up to them. So some of the stuff that they talk about in body language seminars and in TED Talks and stuff is stuff like that's like old archaic, but it probably is still somewhere in our brain, is if I'm showing you the palms of my hands, it means I don't have a weapon. So that means you should automatically be at ease with me because you know I'm not armed. So that's one of the reasons why certain positions might strike us naturally as aggressive or naturally as non-aggressive, because it might be something that's kind of buried deep in our subconscious that, for however many thousands of years people have been on the planet, that when you came in with closed hands, there was a risk of the person having a weapon or something to work against you. If you came in with open hands, palms up, that showed you didn't have anything, like a weapon. So that would give you that appearance of more compassion. So those are things to really pay attention to. And also it does show, like we said, compassion. So we want to never square up our shoulders, don't fold our arms or have military positions, and we want to not point and have open-handed positions. All of that allows us to not appear aggressive. It also allows us to then, in turn, appear compassionate. Okay? So those are important things. And then also, all of this shows us also being engaged. Like we actually give a shit what's going on. So if you fold your arms again, that's a position of I don't care. And then also using your hands to talk, being more animated. Okay? Like where you're kind of like shifting from left to right on your like feet. So rather than standing still, making sure you're standing tall, making sure you're using your hands when you talk. All that stuff shows engagement. Like you're in the moment, present in the moment. When you lean on stuff, okay? So if your client's using a piece of equipment and you're leaning on another piece of equipment next to them, you look like a lazy ass. Get off the damn stuff and stop leaning on things. So I've had to correct trainers in the past, not actually just out of my gym. I did a lot of like I said, personal trainer education through the university, and then also doing it at other public commercial gyms. I would go in there and try to help their staff figure out how they can make more money. And overwhelmingly, you'd see the freaking trainers just leaning on shit all the time. They looked lazy as hell. They looked like they didn't give a shit. So just getting you off of stuff. Stop leaning on things, okay? You can stand on your own 2 damn feet for an hour. You'll be fine. So that is a big one as well. So just staying active, looking like you actually care, okay? So another thing that helps that is never using a cell phone. You should not use a cell phone when you're with a client. I don't give a shit what excuse you just gave me in your head of why you need to have a cell phone. I don't care. Whatever it is, I don't care. Okay? If that's how you track their data, track it on paper, then put it in your phone after the session. Oh, I don't have time for that. Well, then you're going to be out of business. So make time. Okay? If you're on your cell phone, well, I like to use my cell phone because I want to show them a video for an exercise. Well, then only pull out the cell phone when you want to show them the damn video. Don't have the cell phone in your hand all the time. Well, what if I'm timing them? Get a cheap-ass wristwatch from Walmart for $15 that has a time stopper, and use that. Do not hold your cell phone when you train clients. You look like a lazy ass. It looks like you're texting your buddies. I guarantee that you're going to have some notification on your phone of when you get a text or an email or somebody calling you or something, and you will get distracted. Okay? No matter how engaged you're trying to be your client, if all of a sudden this thing blings up on your phone that you got a text from so-and-so, your brain gets sidetracked to read that text, let alone then you're wondering what that text is the rest of the damn session. So do not have your cell phone on you as a trainer. Once again, I don't give a shit what excuse you just gave me. You're wrong. Okay? Now, I've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of clients. I will tell you, every single one of them associate the trainer being on the cell phone as a trainer who doesn't care. Okay? Every single one. There's never been an exception. So you might want to have your cell phone, but you should want to be in business as a trainer more than you wanting to hold your cell phone. Okay? Put your damn cell phone away. Now, what if you have an emergency? Or what if somebody's in the hospital? Sure, whatever. Okay, if you have special circumstances, tell your clients what's going on. Okay, and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to have my cell phone on me today. My dad's in the hospital, and I need to make sure that, if they need me, that I'm available. Your clients are going to understand. It's going to be totally fine. So if you have to do some single moment things like that, special case scenarios, that's fine. But as a regular practice, you should never hold a cell phone being a trainer. Okay? It doesn't matter what you do. If that phone is in your hand, you will look disengaged. Okay? Now, the other thing to think about when you look at body language is not only what is the communication we're sharing with our client, but also what is the communication you're sharing with people who can see you. So members of the gym that you attend or you train out of, okay, they are potential clients. So if you train at a private personal trainer kind of location and you literally are the only trainer there, okay, that's fine. That's not going to really hurt you. But say you work out of a place where there's 3 or 4 other trainers, their clients can see you. And they're going to think positively or negatively based on you. They're going to think positively or negatively for any referrals. Because maybe that trainer they're with is kind of full. Or maybe they can't meet at a certain time. And that trainer says, hey, why don't you go work with so-and-so? They're a good trainer too. And in their head, they're going to go, no, they're always on their cell phone. Or, oh, they're always leaning on shit. Or they always have their arms crossed. I'm not recommending them. So before they even talk to you, before they know anything about you, they will judge you based on your body language. Okay? And members of gyms will do that too. So I've gone to big commercial gyms. Like I remember one time I did a consultation where I was to go to a gym and kind of talk to the trainers. And in like the 15, 20-ish minutes I was there early getting ready for the talk, I was looking across and there was a trainer who was leaning on the piece of equipment his client was using. He was staring at his cell phone and then just counting the reps as the client moved, but he wasn't watching the client move at all. And I was like, oh, dear God, like I would fire that person in a heartbeat. So because there was no concern, no give a shit, they were even talking to another trainer across the gym while their client was being active. And it wasn't anything productive. It was like, yo, bro, saw you last night, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, holy shit, your client is doing something and you're not paying attention at all. So unfortunately, that client didn't know any better. I wish I could have fired that trainer, but I wasn't in charge of that. And I wish I would have went to that client and said, hey, there are better people. There is a better experience out there for you. So if you do have a trainer who uses a cell phone, fire your trainer. Okay? If you have a trainer who looks apathetic all the time, arms folded, they're talking to their buddies, fire the trainer. Okay? So expect what you would give. Don't accept less than that. Okay? So these are important things as trainers for us to pay attention to, is what are we saying when things with things that aren't our words. Okay, what are we saying with our body? What are we saying with our demeanor? What are the messages we're sharing with people? Okay, in just how we look and how we move. So that's very, very significant. So how I apply this, like I said, is I'm 6 foot tall, 280 pounds. I can be very intimidating. So I choose not to square up my shoulders. The only exception to that is if I have a big dude who comes in and he wants an equal. So he wants to feel like an equal in training. I will go ahead and face towards him. So that way, if he's an alpha male, like type A, I need to be an alpha male type A for him to respect me as a trainer. So I can't present myself as a type B or a non-alpha male. So meaning like I can't be sheepish or shy in my body language. I have to be as aggressive as they are. So I have to match their aggression. So this is just for me. Okay. So if you have a smaller stature, maybe you're afraid of not looking like, oh man, maybe I'm only say 5'6", 180. But you're ripped. Maybe you even have good muscle, but 5'6", 180 is not a very imposing body structure. So you might have to square up to people and not be aggressive, don't be an asshole, but just square up to them and let that body language be something that says, hey, I'm in charge, I know what I'm doing, without you having to act like it. So you can still be very nice, but square up with people. Rather than squaring up with people and acting like an asshole and being accused of having short man syndrome. So you have to pay attention to what your body type would be perceived by other people. So if you feel like you need more respect or you need more position of authority, go ahead and square up on people. Okay? If you feel like that might be a negative, like it is in my case, make sure you keep your shoulders off-centered with people. So I never fold my arms. I have no military poses. I always use open-handed palms up movements with my hands when I'm talking. And I also try to keep a playful body language. So I try to never stand stiff. So I usually move a little bit left to right in my feet. That helps fight plantar fasciitis, by the way, if you're standing for multiple hours at a time as a trainer. So the more you move around and get the musculature of your feet moving and get your arch active, it'll help prevent plantar fasciitis pain. So that's something that's important. And then also it just makes you look more engaged, look more excited. It actually helps you feel less fatigued as well. So the more active of body language you have, the more active you will actually feel while you're training your clients. So it's actually a really good way to kind of fake it till you make it in terms of energy. So if you act energetic, you will have energy. If you act lethargic and lazy and leaning on shit, you're going to feel lazy and lethargic. Okay? So this was something just kind of food for thought. So go to YouTube and type body language TED Talk. TEDTALK. So TED is technology, education, and design, I think, or something like that. But TED Talks are freaking awesome. If you don't know what a TED Talk is, just search TED Talk on YouTube. And it's experts in various fields talking about various topics, but it's a very educated viewpoint on whatever the topic is. And there are thousands of topics, so you can find a topic on anything. But it's a really cool, they're usually about 20 minutes or less. So it's a really cool, just kind of life lesson from an expert in a certain field or a certain topic. So rather than reading an 8-hour book, I do audiobooks, so that's why I just gave a time frame for a book. If you listen to an audiobook, like an 8-hour audiobook, there's tons of value and tons of stuff to learn in that, but it's 8 freaking hours. So these TED Talk videos are shorter, kind of quick snippets of information. But you can find TED Talks on body language, and it helps a ton. Okay? So if you have not looked into body language, please look into it now. If you've ever felt like people accused you of behaving in ways that you didn't behave in, so they're like, oh man, that person's a jerk. And you're like, I don't feel like a jerk. I'm trying to be nice. Well, then it might be your body language that's giving up that jerk kind of feel or that vibe. Okay? Or if somebody's like, oh, they're always yelling at people. And you're like, I never yell. I've never raised my voice at anybody. And again, it might be your body language that's creating that. Okay, so make sure that you don't have body language fighting against the message you want to send with your words. Okay, make sure your nonverbal is matching your verbal. Cool? Okay, so hopefully this helped. Hopefully it gave you some kind of awareness that body language is important. So go look more into that, and then on the next trainer podcast, we'll come around and we'll do some more verbal cueing type information. Cool. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at brutalirongym@gmail.com, and we'll help you out. Okay. So if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. Also, if you like the podcast, please share it with other people, okay? With family and friends. The more people we help, the happier the world will be. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. So this podcast is for you, so you want to know what you want to learn about. Then you can tell us at our email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. Cool. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.